do this from memory. Welcome to the IIBA Tampa Bay chapter. This is our 26th class. We have recordings of all the previous classes on our website, and we have a few people that have joined us. One of the most notable is Bob Churchill. He has a website, and I'll show you those addresses in a little while when my computer is finished updating. But he has a website that has amazing content, not just from business analysts' perspective, but also sociology, project management, process modeling, everything that you would want to know to be a really skilled business analyst. He is here as our representative of someone who has completed their CBAP certification. And so the people that are on the call and participate in the hour will also get a 1 hour credit for education that can be used for your education requirement for your tests for the IIBA. So at the end of the call, hopefully my computer will be finished, and we will take names of everyone who's on the call, and I'll update my list. We're going to start today with Bob doing a technique from the from the BABOK, the Business Analyst Book of Knowledge, and then either I will do the next one or Bob will, depending on my computer, and we're going to just make it through these with his awesome presentation. My name is Thea Raisins. You're going to listen to Bob Churchill, and we'll be on here to answer questions as we go. Thank you.
All right. Let me. Can you see that data dictionary?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So when you do any process or any engagement with a customer, whether that's internal or external, you will define or need to understand a whole bunch of information, and it's a really good idea to define what all those pieces of information are, and if you share that among so it's accessible to all the different participants, you can call it a data dictionary. And that is developed throughout the course of the process or the entire engagement. The way I think about data is I define a kind of 6-step framework. It's really more, but it boils down to 6 main phases that you work through during any engagement, and that is the intended use or the charter or the problem statement, problem definition, or whatever, the conceptual model where you figure out what's going on, and that determines the as-is state if you're working on understanding and or modifying an existing system. Requirements figures out what you need to do. That's the to-be state in abstract terms, design, which is the to-be state in more concrete terms, and then the implementation and test. So data is integrated into, processed by, and spat out of or generated by the system, and during the process in a number of contexts. So during the conceptual model phase, when you figure out what's going on, you actually do a process called discovery and also data collection. Discovery defines the nouns and verbs for any system. It helps you understand what's going on. And then data collection is how you characterize the system that you've discovered. So there are different kinds of data as well. And some of it you'll define in the requirements and design phases, and you'll discover or define even more of it during the implementation phase. Remember that as you're working through these 6 phases, it's really more, but again, it boils down to 6 for simplicity. You're really iterating within each phase to get everyone on the same sheet of music. And then you can also iterate between phases, revisiting previous ones to add or modify things as you discover more in later phases. So when you're doing the conceptual model, you're actually identifying bits of data associated with the actual existing system. And then during the requirements and design, you're coming up with really integrating the data you collected, and then during the implementation, you're integrating and defining data you need for control of the solution. And of course, the entire thing spits out generated data. And so you have to define all those things for each data item. So yeah, there are 4 classes of data, those that describe the system, those that describe the things processed by the system and the components within the system. The system description is the discovery part that's more qualitative, and the operating data is more quantitative. The governing parameters are part of the design and implementation, and then the output is the output. So every different data item needs a name, it needs a type of data, and that means it might be numeric, it might be string, it might be some kind of a defined type, or it might be logical. And you also need to know the possible range of values for that, so you can determine values that either make sense or in range or out of range. All these things are important for the implementer, especially for when they're doing implementations in highly or strongly typed programming languages, or using particular tools. The more you know about programming, the better, but make sure you're defining these things in some detail so the actual implementers actually know what they need to accomplish. Data can be distinct, continuous or discrete. So most numeric values are continuous. but counting values are considered discrete, and all non-numeric values are discrete. Some data is just point data. It either is either is what it is, or it can vary randomly or occur within a range. For example, a wait time or a process time within a process might take on a whole range of values. And so that's more of a stochastic thing. Goal values is important. What kind of value are you trying to work to? So that can be higher is better, lower is better, or it's actually going for something that's a target where it needs to go up or down toward the desired value. When you're collecting data, sometimes you need to collect a certain amount to ensure you've got a reasonable representation of the kinds of data you might encounter. So there are formulas for that. You have to determine where the data comes from, whether it's available or not. If it's not available, you have to maybe make assumptions about what it is or what values it should have. Verification and authority. Some data is pre-approved, like it comes on defined forms or from defined agencies or specifications or whatever. But whenever you get data, you have to make sure it's the real thing. There is a lot of fake data out there, so you want to make sure you get the best possible stuff. The other thing that can have to do with data is it might be related to other bits of data. They may come in groups. Like within a document, there's a certain set of data you need. Names and addresses and contact information have particular defined forms. There are database records and defined structures within programs that involve grouped data, and there's a lot to potentially know about that. It's also important to identify handling missing or possibly incorrect data. You need to condition it. There are a lot of possible approaches for either changing values or assuming values that are not present. And one thing that I thought was very interesting is in the case of where data items might be missing in large data sets, you can actually put in dummy values that represent the concept of missingness. And if you do the right massaging and analysis of the data, you may find some correlations that turn out to be interesting. And you may discover particular situations that tend not to generate data. So that's something you can improve. So data from different sources may need to be normalized or regularized so they all have the same units. This is big when you're really collating a lot of data and bringing it together into a larger repository. I'll ask Cliff to talk about this in uh, his work in doing ETL operations at scale, which he's been doing for a long time. You've probably heard that an entire multi-billion-dollar Mars probe was lost about 15 years ago because various teams were not quite careful enough about sharing units or values that were in units. So you don't want that to happen. There you can do sanity checks for internal consistency. For example, if a data set reports totals and all the individual values, well, the individual values should be the same as the totals. And I've encountered situations where they did not agree. So you have to track that down. You also might be aware of how data could change in certain circumstances. I've worked with data that varies seasonally, for example. So even though you can get some kind of a need identified for a resource or for a year, that may not give you all the information you need. You might need more at some parts of the year and less at others. So you have to be aware of granularity. And if you're working with things over long periods of time, methods and sources and techniques may change, so you need to be aware of those. And you should always document where all the data comes from, points of contact of who is responsible for it, know how often they come out, deal with permissions and procedure for obtaining alternative data and so on. So that's probably more than you ever wanted to know, but I've written data dictionaries in any one case. I never included all these in a single one, but these are certainly all things that have come up during my career. And I think in general, you'll find that the more thorough you are, the better it's going to be for everyone. Cliff, do you want to pipe in with a few more comments?
Oh, absolutely. And actually, I loved your comment about the space probe because one of my favorite presentations is Neil deGrasse Tyson. And he talked about that in particular. And the European agency was using metric, the space agency was using inches, and they literally lost a probe because of that. They did not pay attention. And that's a big oops. There's actually another big oops. There was a change today that was just voted on in the Senate that people might not realize just how much reprogramming could possibly have to be done. And I'm talking about the cancelization of daylight savings time, because I don't know about you guys, but I've done plenty of migrations where stupid little 1 hour changes here and there really make some changes in your data when you do an import. If you're importing from the Eastern time zone into a system in the cloud that's set to Pacific, those kinds of things that you have to pay attention to. And then of course you got stupid little states that might not participate and some that do, and countries. And but that's one that happened today that's going to have some ramifications coming down. I did want to share just Here, let's see here. See if I can figure out the screen share in Zoom.
Hey
I'm
Cliff,
at-
before you
Yeah.
share, we have some new people on the call. They don't know what you do. Why don't
Oh,
you give us a
sure,
quick
sure.
introduction?
I work for a company called HCL. Technically, I'm contracted out to Microsoft most of the time. We're a big Microsoft partner. We implement Microsoft systems all over the world. My specialty is data migrations, integrations between systems, primarily Dynamics. And I also have a background in Salesforce. So a lot of times when companies are converting from Salesforce to Dynamics, I get a ring for those types of projects. And actually, speaking of that, because I was going to show a document here.
Let me unshare so you can take over.
Sure.
Done.
All right. Oh, well, share screen. Oh, it'll ask me which one. Okay, good deal.
If y'all can't tell, this guy is kind of a geek.
If you notice my head turning, it's because I have like 7 monitors all around me. So I'm looking at different things. So let's see here.
I only
Yes.
have 4. I'm such a normie.
And actually, let's hide this. Hide this. Can you guys actually see the spreadsheet?
We can see the spreadsheet, but it's awfully tiny.
It's awfully tiny.
Well, trying to read it is beyond what I can do.
Okay.
Maybe other people can.
Well, okay. I can zoom it. Is this helping? This?
Yes, I can read it now.
Okay. Okay. Basically, this is an example of a mapping document that I use, just generic, for like a Salesforce to a Dynamics run. So test data, this is kind of like where I would, if it's small enough to stick in Excel. Otherwise, we're using SQL servers for this kind of stuff. But if you got a small data set, less than 1 million records, you can drop these kinds of things in Excel. Now I've wiped out the data here because I can't share data, but we'll drop the data here. We'll do analysis on it. These are the fields. These are Salesforce fields. We'll figure out how many records, do things like, okay, well, this record has data in 100% of the fields, and bring that kind of thing over here. So we can make intelligent decisions about, okay, well, this is the field name. This is how many records have data in them. This is a percentage have data. And we make a decision on whether we're going to migrate or not migrate, kind of things, based on the data. So, how many people have been in meetings and say, oh, I want all the data. And then you do something like this and realize 90% of their fields contain nothing, or 5% data. So this comes in really handy for those kinds of those kinds of conversations where you can tell people, it's like, what do you mean you need this field? Look at these fields. There's nothing there. Why are you asking for this to be migrated or integrated? Even worse, because integration goes on forever. Then there's all kinds of other things that you have to worry about, like he was saying, Bob was saying, with the data normalization. You get a source system that has this as a value. You get a target system that needs that as the value. So you've got to translate all these fields when you bring them over. So this type field, this is the source. And this, when we bring it over to Dynamics, we actually have to convert it to this value to be able to import it. So these kinds of things, these will drive you nuts in a mapping document if you don't do it, because the values won't match. And then this is just a basic end result data mapping. Source, Salesforce, account. These are fields. These are the values like Bob was talking about. This is a text. This is a lookup to another entity. This is like a date field. This is Boolean, yes or no, 0, 1, true, false. That'll be another thing that can drive you batty in some systems, because 0 and 1 is not always the case. Some systems say true, false. And then over here, you mark it as a, map it to your target. Keep track of what kind of field it is, single line of text. Those are the easiest in the world because you just literally take the text from here to here. But some of these pick lists, so this might have a yes or no value, but I've got to put it in a pick list that has a yes or no value. And I've got to be able to translate that. And these are the same kinds of things that you will run into with an integration and a data migration. So data integrations are jobs that run all the time to integrate two systems between each other. And you have this kind of stuff going on forever. And one little system and one little change in the source system will break, of course, this. So you have to keep pretty good documentation for integrations for that very reason. How in the world do I stop sharing?
It should be at the bottom of your screen.
Should be a red section. It'll show you.
Oh,
that-
stop share. There we go. Got it.
There you go.
If you tell I'm a Microsoft guy, I use Teams. I'm not very familiar with Zoom.
It
So
worked.
there you go.
Thank you, Cliff. So did anyone have any questions?
I had a question. This is Carolyn Swicegood. I had a question, but I think he answered it. The spreadsheet that you were sharing, Cliff, that was not all of your Salesforce fields, correct? That was just a chosen few.
Well, the initial is what we call a Salesforce object, which is a table inside of Salesforce. So you have one for accounts, one for contacts, one for opportunities. So you do one of those for each object or entity. Dynamics calls it an entity. Salesforce calls it an object, just different terminology for the same thing. But yeah, now I lost track of what I was.
You were talking about Salesforce fields.
Yeah, so on those, when in the mapping, actually that end tab where the mappings are, I try to only keep the fields that we're interested in. The very first one, you get all the fields, you go through them and you figure out how much data is in each field, and then you make the decision on whether you're going to migrate those or not. And in the final tab there, I put the fields that we're actually migrating because we don't care about the other fields.
Right. I love that because I use DocuSign, which is I get Salesforce information out to DocuSign and I send it back to Salesforce, and I need something like that. So thank you.
Oh, yeah. If you reach out to me, I can send you a blank mapping document like that if that would help you.
Oh, that would be awesome. Thank you.
Oh yeah, yeah. I have a couple of generic ones because I can't send you ones with data in it, of course.
Oh, yeah, of course.
But the one I just shared there, yeah, I can definitely send that out because we've removed everything in it.
Great, thank you.
Excellent. Anyone else have any questions? Okay. Bob, take it away for scope modeling, please.
All right. Can you see my screen there?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So scope modeling is I think a little bit of a weird name. You really try to determine the scope of things or identify the scope of existing things as a normal part of your work. So I think maybe this could be called scope determination or scope identification, however. since a major part of what we do is conceptual modeling, when we build up a representation of what already exists and or whatever it is we're going to do, that's a form of modeling. So scope is part of that. So I maybe can learn to live with the idea that this is called scope modeling. So that's an either here or there. So I talked about previously on articles on my blog that touch on scope determination in a couple of places. One has to do with not missing things in the discovery process, making sure we are very thorough, and the other is just doing discovery itself. In the end, the main thing you need to know about scope is whether something is in or out of the scope of the work you're going to do, or whether it's in one section or another of the work you're going to do. So those are slightly different, but equally important. So the BABOK goes on to really give a decent amount of text. So it talks about some context for this. So it mentions the concept of control, which is who does what or who is responsible for what. Need, who needs one. Solution, what part of the system does one, and change, which is what does and does not change. I think a lot of this is really, these are things that are either in or out of scope, or in one section or another. And it also has a section that talks about relationships between logical components or operations. It lists some of them. You can read those for yourself. One thing that it does, I think the four that it starts with are pretty straightforward. In reality, all of these things really should fall out of your work naturally. You end up defining interfaces and boundaries between all these things naturally. And I think all of you experienced practitioners just know how to do this implicitly. The BABOK also lists emergent behavior as a type of relationship, and that describes the possibility that unexpected behaviors can arise from the complexity of systems. And while that's totally true, I don't think it has much to do with the idea of scope. I think it's useful to include in the BABOK someplace, but this may not be the place for it. And the final thing I want to touch on, there's not really much to say about scope, again, because at root it's a fairly simple concept. And that is, you're always trying to do assumptions and capabilities and risks and impacts. And that's a phase I kind of define that takes place sort of during or in parallel or involved involved with all of conceptual model requirements and design. So you're really making decisions on what is the impact of everything I'm going to do, what can we do and what can't we do, and when we don't have certain information or parameters, what assumptions should we make? And assuming values or situation is kind of determining what kind of detail you're gonna have in scope or out of scope. And you usually make assumptions to simplify what's in scope. And because either information isn't available, or what's going on behind it, all the activities are way too complicated to really include in the scope of your work. I hope I made that clear. One thing I want to do, a week or two ago, I talked about interfaces and going back to the data dictionary. I described to you this system I actually implemented. I just did the blue box in the middle surrounded by the red square right there in the middle, kind of at the top of that gray box. And all of those arrows between boxes are interfacing, and every one of those interfaces involved a huge amount of data, anywhere from 10 items to 100. And that had to be worked out by different teams of implementers within companies, within equipment manufacturers, between internal and external customers, and so on. And every single bit of that had to be right. So that's yet another situation where a data dictionary is very helpful. And that's all I have to say about scope. Any questions?
Very good. Anybody have any questions for Bob?
I'm actually interested in the past, since this is like halfway through or whatever. I'm interested in not just this, but I'm interested in the past events. Do you have a link to those?
You mean the previous classes?
Yes.
Yes.
Carol,
Yeah.
if you reach out to me on LinkedIn, you'll see it in the message. I'll
Okay.
get you in all our channels and that'll have the link
Thank you
to
very
all the
much.
recordings.
Okay, great. Thank you, Cliff.
Very good. Okay, my computer is finally updated. Let me show you the things I should have shown you at the very beginning. Okay. Presentation. So this is the fabulous slide you would have seen whenever you first joined us, but there's a few things that you need to see beyond that. This is all of our addresses. There we are. This is our website, our meetup, Facebook, and 2 different ways to reach us on LinkedIn. I'll give you a chance to take a screenshot of that if you want to. In fact, let me drop that into the chat. I'll do that in just a minute. You've been talking to Cliff. You probably didn't know he is our president, and we have a couple of other people on our board. Yes, I know, Bob, you're awesome.
Cliff
we-
is awesome.
So we are looking for new people to join us on our board. It's sometimes just an honorary position, and then sometimes we want you to like show up and attend these classes so that we can have people here to have conversation. We always find it beneficial and helpful. As I said earlier, my name is Thea Raisins. This is my LinkedIn profile address. I'm the Vice President of Career and Professional Development for the Tampa Bay IIBA. If you need assistance with resumes, mentoring, consulting, whatever, I'm here to help. That's what I do. As you know, this is our 26th class. We've gone through a whole lot of classes, and most of those are available to you. But today's class is, I need to get our attendance for it. So let's see. I've got Sylvia here. And Carol?
Hi,
What's your last name?
Swicegood, SWICEGOOD.
Okay,
And it's
You-
Carol -Lynn.
okay, I will put that in there.
Okay.
LYNN?
Uh-huh.
Okay,
Thank you.
you have an hour's worth of education credit for your upcoming CBAP certification or whatever certification you want.
Woohoo.
All we have to do is just contact me and I'll write a official letter that says that you attended these classes and what dates you attended. But I just want to be sure that
Hopefully
you-
I'll have more out there. Thank you.
there are lots more. Is there anyone else on the call?
Ilya here.
Yes, we
Hey.
have a new one. Tish, Tish Bell.
Hi.
Hi, Io's here.
Oh,
Okay.
yes. And yeah, he's up there 4 or 5 lines.
There
Right
you
there.
are. Okay,
And Ilya is here.
awesome. Missed you.
Hey. Thanks, guys.
Okay, have I given everyone credit?
No, Omira's there too. It's right under your name.
Okay, my name, there's your name. Thank you. Okay, anybody else?
And I took a screenshot, sent it to you on LinkedIn there, Thea. So
Thank you.
if we miss
Thank
anybody,
you.
you can look.
Okay, I'm going to save this to be sure it gets saved. And we don't have a lot of time to do another technique, so I'm going to switch gears here a little bit and let's talk about prepping and taking the test. For those of you who are reasonably new to our classes, earlier, I should have put topics. Earlier in the classes, we went through an entire session of talking about how to apply for the test, what you need to apply for the different tests. And so I want to just briefly go over that, if that is something that would be useful to y'all who are on the call. Is that something you'd like to hear about?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so to take the test, it's less expensive if you're a member of the IIBA organization. You get a discount for it. In some ways, it kind of is almost a wash. There are other benefits of being a member of the IIBA organization. You get access to a whole lot of training. They've got the most awesome library. It's probably comparable to Bob's library, but it's a library of things from the project management, PMI. It's all of the BA books that you would want, and you have access to it virtually. So, and I think they have a bunch of the Agile stuff in there too. Additionally, you have access to every chapter meeting or every chapter event that's virtual around the world. If you want to attend in person, you can do that too. So there have been some people that have spent a full 8 hours going from country to country attending events. And so these are events of study groups, lunch and learn, social things, demos, all kinds of really awesome opportunities that you might not have access to if you're not a member of the IIBA. Now, to take the test, you have to go through an application process. The application requires that you have a specific number of years of experience based on, depending on which test you want to take. Additionally, a specific number of hours of education that you have taken. And the education isn't specifically only for business analysis. It can be something, tangentially related, but you do need to be able to hit that mark and be able to prove that you've taken those classes or taken that test. Self-study is one of the things that is credited to a certain number, a certain amount. As I said earlier, there's quite a number of different certifications that you can take through the IIBA. One of them is the Agile certification. I found that in the business world, anything with the Agile certification is very valuable. It's kind of enticing to potential employers. Really, when it comes down to your certifications, though, the certification is only valuable if your current or potential employer values it. There are some companies, they don't care. And you're going to go through a lot of effort to study and take the certification if they don't care. However, having the certification for some jobs, it's like, oh, you have a certification. That means that you've invested in your career and your profession. And so we're going to take a more serious look at you because of that. Let's see, what else do you need to know? Taking the certification, completing the certification application requires that you have references. They will contact your references. Your references must respond. So be sure you have 3 people that will respond. Whenever you fill out the application, you also need to be able to identify companies you worked for that you did BA work. It doesn't have to have BA title, but it has to have BA work. If it is one of those that you have to have a certain number of hours as a BA. So have your references ready, have them primed to respond. They send them an email, and that's how they contact them. And they basically say, did you work with this person in this role? And it's pretty cut and dry. I would always encourage you never to be dishonest in your estimation on your application of what you've done, but I will tell you that just because you didn't have a BA title does not mean you did not do BA work. I've told many people, if you've ever babysat a 3-year-old and was successful and kept them alive, you probably did BA work. One of the things, it's like, oh, you're hungry. So what are you hungry for? Peanut butter sandwich? Okay, I'll make you a peanut butter sandwich. Here's a peanut butter sandwich. Is that what you wanted? You just did BA work. You gathered requirements, you helped get to the development done, you gave a delivery, and you verified that you achieved what was in scope. That's BA work. So as a project manager, you've probably done BA work. As any kind of analyst, team member, you've done BA work. So you need to be able to cite BA work in several of the different chapters or elements of the BABOK. So you need to understand what the BABOK says. Now let's talk about the BABOK itself. The BABOK is a huge, thick book, 2.5, 3 inches thick if you get the paper copy. Oh, Bob's going to show us a copy right now, I bet you. Yep, there's the BABOK, there's the thickness. Now I'm going to tell you, I said this earlier in the call, the BABOK presents reality a little bit differently than some of us experience it. Yes, Vanna White. But to answer the questions on the test, you need to know what the BABOK says, and you need to answer it the way the BABOK says. I often like studying the BABOK to being a Secret Service agent looking for a counterfeit. Whenever you're looking at the test, you need to know instinctively, because you studied it so well, that phrasing, that sentence comes from the BABOK. Nothing else matches, because there will be 3 good answers on most of the questions. Only one of them is the best right answer. Only one of them is from the BABOK. And they will give you a list of 6 different things on each of the 4 options of your answer. And you have to know which one is the most right answer according to the BABOK. So studying the BABOK is really important. There are test scenarios, test sample tests that you can take. My favorite is Watermark. Bob, what was the one that you went through?
I went through a company called Adaptive US. I think their offering was a little less expensive or a little more expensive than it is now. It was about $1,700, but it was they would do 4 hours on a Saturday and Sunday over like 5 different weekends, and then 2 weeks off, I think, and 1 final week. And I actually took my exam in that 2-week gap because we'd done the 35 hours by that point. A couple of the articles I wrote were actually, like the one for interface analysis was actually for that class, involved participants from all over the world. There were people in Australia, the Middle East, all over Asia. It was really fascinating to have all those people. It was called Adaptive US, and they were really good. Their customer service was spectacular. If you go to my blog, they may offer you a discount. There's a code you can use down at the bottom. I don't know whether it's still good and or how much of a discount they'll give you, but it's there. So try it out.
Watermark is also given 10 or 15% to anybody who asks, and I can get you that code if you choose.
They
Go ahead, Bob.
also paid for 1 year of IIBA membership. They used to send you a small paperback book. I have it here someplace. Don't know where it is right now. And they'll pay for your test fee. So, and 1 retry. So even though I quote a figure of about $1,700, it's in principle, or as a practical matter, somewhat less expensive than that net. And I felt really prepared to take the test. It was the class was easy for me because I'd already been doing it forever, but I just want to put in a good word for them.
Very good. So different companies will offer you different things. There are there are classes that are in person virtually. There are tests that are in person actually. There are recordings. There are flashcards. There's all kinds of things that you can take. But what we have used for the first 2019 classes, something like that, for this series was Watermark's test scenarios, and we just went chapter by chapter. What we discovered is the people that were participating in the class didn't always read the chapter ahead of time. And so what we discovered is what they do in the real world in their job and what the BABOK says that is the right thing to do doesn't always match. So you really do, there's the paperback. So you really do need to study the BABOK, understand it, read it enough so that it becomes kind of just known to you. I actually got my PDF to read out loud to me because I listen and learn that way a lot better. And then I highlight as I go so that I could kind of quote as it went. And then whenever I got to the test questions, it was a whole lot easier for me to recognize the things that were, that's out of the BABOK, that's familiar to me. Do I have any questions about taking the test? You do have to schedule your test. Bob, do you know if it's still proctored at home, or do you know if we can go into a proctored location yet? Wait, you're on mute.
There are probably still physical test locations. Those are easier, but they do remote proctoring. I actually did my CBDA, I think that's right. Cert for them about 15 months ago, right here at this desk. It's a real pain, but on the one hand, because you have to turn your camera to show the whole area. You can't have anything anywhere near you. You have to make sure the room's clean so you're not embarrassed. They're really formal about it and prickly about it, but you know, the exam wasn't that bad, and it is easier and maybe a little less tense than going to a physical location.
Yeah.
So if you're proctor at home, they won't allow you to have any paper around you. They're very strict on what you can have. So you really have to know it. You can't, there's no cheating allowed, which is better, because we have a code of ethics as business analysts that we have to represent the business analyst profession for all of us. And so being honest just works out better.
Yeah,
I
if it's
think-
anything like the Microsoft ones, I think they even record you. I can't even take them at home because I have too many monitors. They crap themselves when I scan the room. So I go to the Pasco Hernando College, which is like 5 minutes away. They have a little test center in there to take those tests. But yeah, if you're at home, you know, plan on like taking your laptop into a room, maybe. And if you've got multiple screens, they're not happy about any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think the passing score is 70 or 75%, something like that. You have to have decent scores in all the different sections. You may be able to have a lower than passing in one section. I'm not sure. So you have to do fairly well, but you have to accept that you're just going to miss a few questions just because the questions are inherently goofy some of the time. But if you have a strong native understanding and a solid framework for the whole practice of BA work, then you should have a really good chance of passing. As I've observed many times, the watermark questions are a little bit more stickily and more precious and detailed than are the questions on the actual exam. So I
Right.
think we struggled to get really good scores on the test questions, but that's useful because it makes you really work and study harder, I think.
Okay, someone asked, how is the exam graded? It's graded instantly, isn't it?
Yeah, you get your result the minute the time ends.
Right. So you know immediately if you've passed or not. And Bobby, you said that if you go through Adaptive US, they pay for a second test if you don't pass the first one?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a fee for the application, there's a fee for the test. And I had, whenever I took it, it was prior to COVID, and I had to make an appointment and show up at the testing center and put all my stuff in a locked box and, you know, everything. but that's how it is. And so studying is important, and that's why we're studying together. Does anyone have any questions?
By the way, we had 2 new people join. We're right at the end of the session. We're thrilled to have you, and we
Absolutely.
hope we see you in subsequent weeks.
Yes, this is our 26th class in a row, a weekly class. I didn't know that we could do this, but we're doing it. We're currently working through techniques, and I will post on our meetup of which techniques that we've already gone through and which techniques we still have to go through. If anyone's interested in doing, a 10, 15-minute class, episode of one of the techniques, you're welcome to. You'll absolutely get credit for presenting that. And it doesn't have to be anything beyond what's in the BABOK itself. If you want to create a presentation, a PowerPoint examples, that would be phenomenal. If you can bring to bear things from your own experience to help people understand it better, that's even better. But the BABOK is all that has to be done. The BABOK is there may be about 3 pages. Whenever I wrote the techniques chapter years ago, I didn't want it to be too long. I wanted it to be descriptive instead of prescriptive. So that's what we have. Okay, we are at the end of our time. Thank y'all very much.
Carol has a question now.
Oh, I'm so
If you
sorry.
saw her, Ann.
Yes.
It's okay. I'm just interested in, since you've gone through all of this once, or maybe more, will you do it again anytime soon?
Well, it's going to take us probably another 10 weeks to get through all of the techniques.
Oh, okay. So I'm not too late.
Oh, no. We have a lot more good stuff to go.
Okay.
And we got a lot of recordings out there too. So
Okay.
the recordings are all available. Cliff has been very faithful in keeping our recordings updated and keeping us on track.
Okay.
we missed last week. That was one that I missed. I was
Uh-oh.
out for my 25th wedding anniversary. Was a little more
Yay!
important than the class. So
Yes.
but other than that, we've got lots of recordings out there. And yes, welcome Tish, Monica,
Yes.
new this week. So it's awesome.
And
Thank you.
again, if anybody needs any mentoring, review, if I can help with your programs, let me know. I'm happy to do that. Okay, guys, you have a safe and healthy week, and I hope to see you back next week. Bring other people if you want to. We want to make this good for everybody. The more people we can help, the more people we can help. Okay, and your conversation makes our lesson even better. Okay, talk to y'all later. Bye.
Yep. Have a good week.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.